It landed like a gut punch to me. I was in a Zoom meeting with my boss, who was the former president of Stanford, and just a month before, he had given me a performance review for my first year on the job reporting to him. And it wasn't a stellar performance review, but it was all stuff that he and I agreed I could work on. In fact, at one point in that conversation, he said to me, JD, you're harder on yourself than I would ever be on you. Work on these things and let's have a great second year. But less than 5 weeks later, I was in another Zoom conversation with him because we're in the midst of the pandemic, and it became clear to me that we were no longer on the same page. In fact, I questioned if we were even in the same book in terms of how we looked at leadership. I'd been hired to create a leadership development program for what was Stanford's version of Rhodes Scholars, and my vision and his vision of what leadership looked like were really becoming clear that they were very different. But his name was on the outside of the building, and he was the one who had raised the money for the program that was named after him. And it was clear to me that this was not a battle that I was going to be able to win. And so after several long conversations over the next few weeks, I made the decision to leave what I thought was the dream job. In fact, I probably said too many times, this is the last cover letter of my life when I applied for it. And so reluctantly, I stepped on September 1st of 2020 into the ranks of unemployment. And this period of unpaid sabbatical, as I like to call it, gave me time to reflect on all that mattered to me and what did really drive me and what was important to me. And I will acknowledge quickly, I was blessed. My husband and I decided together that I didn't need to rush into the next job opportunity. And I took time to take classes, I got certified as a crisis counselor for the crisis text line. I volunteered on the election. I ran one of the polling sites in San Francisco. And I began to do a lot more time with my kids, who were home quite a bit of the time, my 3-year-old and my 6-year-old. And through this period of rebounding or resilience to the loss of the dream job, I began to see other things were possible for myself. And so what I chose to talk about today inside of the theme here at Vail is that resilience is a muscle that you can exercise, that you can develop, much like you were saying, but it's a muscle you should develop before you need it. Don't wait until you are in the crisis that you need to use the resilience, but build it before you get there. Actually, I'll compare this to one of my friends when I was doing my MBA at NYU. We were going to a networking event one time, and Kush and I got in the elevator to go up to the 10th floor for this event, and somebody else joined us in the elevator. I don't know this guy, but I remember him saying, "Oh, you're going to the networking event. I've so got to do this because I lost my job today." And Kush looked at him and said, "You don't need to network. You needed to do that 6 months ago. You need to go find a job." And so you really got to build that muscle of resilience before you need it. The author Meg Jay, who wrote the Defining Decade, she talks about the best time to work on your marriage is before you're in a marriage. And the same thing with resilience. The best time to work on it is before you need to exercise that muscle. So to make this easier for you, I've come up with 3 to-dos and 3 to-don'ts to help you build that muscle of resilience. On the to-do side, nurture relationships in an analog fashion. Now I'm dating myself. Nurture relationships that don't rely on technology, that you don't have to be on Instagram or WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever to connect with those people. I have a friend, actually somebody who I volunteer with at the crisis text line, and she called me the other day. I had never heard her voice before. We had always communicated only via text and when we were on the app volunteering together. And we had a phone conversation. Cultivate relationships in your life that are analog. The second to do is practice gratitude daily. Now, you can decide what this looks like for you. There's a couple of practices that I've used from time to time. One is before I send an email in the morning, the first email that I send is an acknowledgement of something that happened the day before. And that's like my ticket to allow me to go into my inbox and start handling all the other emails that are there. If that doesn't work for you, just look for somebody through the day that you think probably hasn't gotten thanked or acknowledged as much as they should. For me, I had two people like that. One was my Uber driver who drove me here to 77 Mass Avenue in the rain. And I was like, this is not a fun job today, is it? And I thanked him, and I thanked him with eye contact and genuinely acknowledging that he made it possible for me to get here from Logan. And then the third step that is one of the to-dos that I encourage you to put into place is to have a way to capture your dreams in front of you. Now, my husband and I, we love to do vision boards. Other people like to journal. Other people have digital, like a screensaver that is the dreams of what it is you want to accomplish, or the places you want to go, or the awards that you want to achieve, or the jobs you want to have. But have something in your vision that you see on a regular basis that reminds you of what you're committed to. So those are some of the to-dos that will give you resilience. The to-don'ts, avoid toxic people. If you are in a toxic relationship, be it a romantic relationship, be it an employment, be it an advisor, if you are in a relationship that is toxic, you need to step out of it. You need to find another way to have that need met in your life. It is not going to change. It is not going to get better. It's like when you have sour milk and you're like, oh, I'll put that back in the fridge for a couple more weeks and see if it, no. If it's a toxic relationship, step away and avoid having toxic people in your life. Second, reduce, or if you can, eliminate relying on artificial substances to bring you joy. Be that drugs or alcohol or shopping or sugar or caffeine. If there is something that you find yourself relying on too heavily to bring you that joy or to take you away from the life that you're leading, that's an indication that that's probably something you need to reduce or eliminate. And third, eliminate the I've got this, don't worry. Too many of us, when we hit those hard moments, act like we've got it all together. And we're afraid to acknowledge that we need help. That false bravado actually can be our undoing. And so I invite you to eliminate that attitude of I've got this and be vulnerable enough to let somebody know you need help. Whether it's somebody directly in your life or it's somebody anonymously through a phone line or a text line or a counselor that you can see. Now, we did a warning before I started talking because a part of my journey is that I am a survivor of a very serious suicide attempt. In 2003, I went through a very dark night of the soul. And at that moment, I did not think that life was worth living. And I'm one of the few people who has survived from leaping off of the Manhattan Bridge. I failed at a very serious suicide attempt. And I was put back together, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually, by people who were more committed to my life than I was. And I am forever grateful for what happened to me after that really, really, really bad choice. And you do not need to make a choice like I did. If my recovery from depression and suicide were a person, it would be able to vote now. It would be 18 years old. And in that 18 years, I have done a whole lot of work. First, interior work on myself, and then exterior work on the relationships that matter in my life, so that I can be here today talking about failure in a way that hopefully brings some hope and some access to avenues that people don't realize are available to them. I am not defined by my failed suicide attempt. I am defined by the life that I have created since that moment. And that life includes a husband and 3 children who I adore, and it's really hard to be away from them for 2 nights so that I can be here with all of you. And a body of work that I am proud of at Stanford and at several other institutions, and a life that is about sharing my journey so that if some of my mistakes, some of my failures can help you on your journey.